Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the NPA Report. I have a guest with me this morning that I am anxious for you to meet. He's a guy you probably already know. He's been in and out of the news cycle for several years, but there is so much more to Dr. Tre Pennie than maybe a few headlines you've read. He is a police sergeant, retired now. He's a PhD. He is the president of the National Fallen Officers Foundation. And he's a guy who decided not to just sit on the sidelines, but to get involved, not only in his community, but nationally. Dr. Sergeant Pennie, welcome to the program.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Sarge.
So let's get right to it and just talk about why you decided to get into police work.
Look, I grew up in an inner city, Houston, Texas. I mean, I grew up in one of these communities that was anti-police, anti-government, anti-everything. And for me, the interactions have always been, I never had those direct interactions with law enforcement until like the most tragic time. At the age of 16, I witnessed my cousin get killed in front of me the day before her wedding day. And my first interaction with law enforcement was these officers showing up that didn't look like me, that treated my family with respect, that treated me, were very respectful to that situation. And look, I tell people all the time that the most tragic time of my life was also the most impactful time of my life, because those officers were actually an inspiration that caused me to go into law enforcement. So, that was the impetus for me to join the United States Army, to get out of the inner city, and ultimately pave my way to entering the Dallas Police Department.
And you spent
the last 2 years.
Right. You spent 22 years in one of the largest police departments in the nation, doing all kinds of various assignments, didn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, this is that was probably I would say, with all the accomplishments I've achieved in life, I want to rank the Dallas Police Department and being a sergeant within that agency, my highest honor, because, looking at the things I've been through in life and the experiences I had just on the ground and dealing with the people, the relationships that I developed over time. I mean, there's nothing that can compare to it.
And the sergeant's the best job in the agency, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
So, Sarge, talk about the National Fallen Officers Foundation, which you are the president of. What prompted you to start that organization?
Yeah, so in short, basically the National Fallen Officers Foundation, it evolved over time from the Dallas Fallen Officers Foundation, which was initially created back in 2009 after one of my friends got killed in the line of duty. And, we saw what it was like. I mean, in the immediate aftermath of an officer dying, we're trying to figure out how to get resources to the family. So we were doing barbecues and all these different type of fundraisers to try to raise money. And I saw how hard it was. And, ultimately we were able to support the widow. And afterwards, she told me after the funeral was over, she was very appreciative. And she said that, what people don't realize is whenever an officer dies in line of duty, and look, we're police. I mean, a lot of officers don't have their wives on on their paperwork. We talk all the time about officers, go get your insurance, go get, do your will and get all this stuff together. But officers, the reality is they don't do it. So this was one of the families that didn't have, she wasn't on her husband's bank account and all that. So everything was frozen. So if you think about her having to prepare for this funeral, family members coming in, being able to buy clothes, buy food and set that whole thing up, she didn't have the resources. So she said she wanted to have an organization to be able to do that. And one that was not, union affiliated or that didn't have, you have to have membership or anything like that. So that was like the initial concept for the foundation. So I created it. Really took the mission forward in 2015, and in 2018 is when National formed, and it just became a robust mission because locally, we would get calls from across the state to get support, and then people from across the nation start calling the state for support. And I say, look, you know what? We need to have this national base where we can just support officers' family whenever things happen. So that was essentially the concept behind it.
And I tell you, I don't know that the general public understands the resources that it takes when because, I think a lot of people think, and especially a big department like Dallas, oh, doesn't the department just pay for everything? Well, they don't. And there's line of duty benefits that come forward eventually, but that takes a lot of time and paperwork. And in the meantime, like you said, you've got to prepare for a burial. There's family coming in, there's clothes to purchase, there's people to feed, and there's family life to get on with while all that's going on. So, the concept that you came up with, it's needed. It is needed nationally for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a big part of it as well. I mean, it's not just more so the support, and this was actually what really evolved national into a different space because, we want to support these officers, support the families, but what I saw was a lack of motivation to advocate for the interests of our officers. Right, I just saw like on the ground, especially dealing with political leadership or leadership within executive leadership within police departments, there are a lot of issues that they just simply don't want to touch. And a lot of times those same issues, especially when it involves stuff like race, the unions don't want to get into the middle of it. So what I wanted to do is bring more so a common sense approach to addressing issues as they impact officers, all officers in the line of duty. So that's kind of the second piece of where I wanted to go with the national was the advocacy, right? It really educating people about things that are happening and how officers in the field are really being impacted, right? And which kind of leads me into how Sergeant Pennie kind of evolved into this name, right? And where the controversy came from, because I had to get in the middle of a lot of things in order to address issues that were being ignored for law enforcement as a whole.
Absolutely. And that brings us to July 7th, 2016, which was one of the darkest days in law enforcement history. And I remember I got up that morning and heard what had happened in Dallas. You can talk about that. But I just remember feeling despondent at what happened on that day, brokenhearted, truly. Talk about that day for you.
Yeah, no, this was probably, and it's hard for me not to get emotional talking about it, but two of the officers were really good friends of mine, and but to make a long story short, this was all based on this radicalized agenda that we saw fall in 2015 with Mike Brown. I mean, actually, it started initially in 2014 with Trayvon Martin, and where they tried to get the Black Lives Matter movement really tried to gain traction, but they couldn't because they had a lot of different social agendas and LGBT wrapped into the movement at the same time that they were trying to connect with Black nationalism, and they kind of didn't line up. So 2015, after Mike Brown, they had already worked out those kinks. And it was the perfect opportunity. When you saw Ferguson, they set Ferguson on fire. And what I was seeing on my side was not necessarily, the movement itself. Like I saw the radicalism of what the messaging was within the movement based off of what they were saying. I mean, they wanted Black nationalism. They wanted the Black, they wanted to create this race war, Blacks against whites type thing, right? But at the same time, these groups they knew how to operate on social media. And I had coordinated with I was working on my doctorate degree at the time, and I found a cyber intelligence company out of New York that is called GOPEC that I relied on for their intelligence data. They were already finding these trends online related to international terrorism. And I wanted to see if they can apply those same mechanisms to domestic terrorism, because what we saw what Black Lives Matter was. And guys, look, it's not a political thing, right? The definition for domestic terrorism was already laid out for us by the Department of Justice. Any group using force and intimidation for the purpose of changing governmental policy is, by definition, domestic terrorism. That's what that group was using. And they were able to fundraise in massive amounts on public platform, which was Facebook, Google, and Twitter. So when the shooting attack happens in Dallas, I saw these trends coming to Dallas. After we saw Ferguson, we saw Baltimore, and it was a big ramp up on social media about Dallas being next, right? Prior to the shooting attack in Dallas, there were some radicalized hashtag trending on social media that I had privy of seeing, right? And I went to a lot of our politicians, political leaders, and law enforcement officials, they knew about this hashtag. But the problem was within law enforcement, we were unable to truly identify these trends, or how to stop them, or how to follow them, because essentially there's kind of like there's a problem with existing legislation that kind of allows these social media platforms to let certain information through, because they're trying to weigh freedom of speech versus domestic online terrorist behavior, right? So anyway, make a long story short, there was hashtag kill police, hashtag F the police, hashtag Dallas, and we saw these trends in Dallas, right? So there was this image circulating online, of which one of the running backs from Cleveland Browns, I don't know if you remember this deal, he had circulated this image of an officer in his head beheaded, right? And that image was trending on social media, right? It had been shared 5,500 times, 55,000 times on social media, and it was trending. And so at the same time, you have political groups in Dallas that want to do this protest. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but I was like one of these people. I'm an advocate in the community, so I was trying to prevent even having that protest in Dallas, right? There was no reason to do it, because we had worked out these race-related issues in our community a long time ago. So I was dealing with the executive leadership within Dallas. I was dealing with the community, and it was the Black church that helped them organize a protest. So just so happened to be a church that I was a member of. And so I went to the church and I was like, hey, man, there's no reason to host this protest. If you want to address these issues, we can we can have a town hall meeting. We can address our issues, but Dallas doesn't have the problem. We're not Cleveland, we're not Ferguson, this is completely different. But it's like, no, Sarge, they want to protest. They want to march. I'm saying, okay, cool. If you want to do it, then do it at 12 o'clock in the morning. Don't do it at 7 o'clock at night, right? Because see, that's when you talk about this, and you got to go back to my history and what I knew about the Black nationalist movement. They organized these protests at night strictly to hide behind the cover of darkness, right? They knew exactly what they were doing. That's like the design of this thing. And I'm trying to explain it to everybody. Nobody want to listen, right? Until it's too late. We have this, lo and behold, this deal happens, the shooting attack happens. We had 5 officers killed, we had 9 officers shot. And what I would say, Sarge, is that that's probably the most traumatic. Look, I've been through some tragedies, but that scene, right? Being at the hospital and seeing officers come in on the stretcher, one after the other. I mean, that was like, I thought I was in a war zone, right? It was unreal. And at the same time, once all the dust settles, right? This is an immediate aftermath. Our chief of police gets on national media, and he says something about, I think his quote went viral, right? We need to get these protesters off the picket line and tell them to put in the application, right? That was his thing, and that it took off. Well, the problem is, you got these radicals now that think that they have a place in law enforcement, right? It completely negated the fact that this was a radicalized Black Lives Matter. It wasn't a positive protest, because they had people walking in a sign, F the police, burn the pig like bacon. These were chants, right? This wasn't even, anyway, make a long story short, this stuff was here. We saw that this was going to be radical. Our officers, by all indications of what had happened across the country, should have been in riot gear at that protest, right? But they wasn't. We end up losing officers, right? Officers get shot and killed. And I went to a lot of people, a lot of politicians, and I hope that they would get into the middle of it and they would address these issues that were in front of us. But the problem was, it was too political because of race. Nobody wanted to say, if you were Black, you didn't want to condemn Black Lives Matter, because they were going to say that you were a sellout or Uncle Tom. And if you were white, you didn't want to say anything because they're going to say you were racist. You definitely weren't going to say nothing, right? It was just it was one of those things. And what I ended up doing was I ended up reaching out to one of the most controversial attorneys in the country at the time, was Larry Klayman. He was the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. and reached out to Larry and asked him if he'd get behind me. Look, I had been studying this. I know a lot about the negative trends, how social media was working, how these groups were organizing, how, I knew a lot about the movement. And anyway, he agreed. He got behind me. I filed the federal lawsuit against Black Lives Matter. I named the president of the United States in the lawsuit, Barack Obama, because he brought Black Lives Matter to the White House right after they burned down Ferguson and told them they were making history, right? So if you think of, you basically condone their behavior. So anyway, make a long story short, what I was trying to do in essence was bring attention to this radicalized behavior that everybody in America was trying to ignore. And we did just that. That's what happened. Now, none of the judges wanted to touch it because subsequent to the Black Lives Matter lawsuit, I filed the lawsuit against Facebook, Google, and Twitter, right, for facilitating the attack in Dallas. And although even those entities got in court and they admitted that they knew that their platform was being used for nefarious means, the court granted them protection under the outdated 1996 Communication Decency Act, Section 230, which basically gives these companies immunity protection for what third parties post on their platform. And look, I think if nothing else, what it did was it paved the way for what we see today, right? That was one of the reasons that I ended up, connecting with the White House at the time. And you got to remember, I was politically active in a lot of different ways, and that connected me to the Trump administration. I thank God every day for the Trump administration because these guys, they showed me nothing but love. I came in, he offered me a presidential appointment to the White House, and I was like right before time for me to retire. And I was trying to weigh it out. Do I just leave my pension on the table and leave, or do I take the appointment, which would have been my highest honor? But I just thought the pension was probably better suited. So I say I'm gonna run for Congress first, and when I finish, Trump will be here waiting on me. So I ran, he ran, we both lost. So we out here. It's all good. I say at the end of the day, the experience was more than everything because I made so many connections. And if I talk about the advocacy and the things I really want to do for law enforcement, those experiences that I developed over the years, especially politically, opened the door for me to be able to do just that. Just testified in front of Congress about 2 months ago in front of their judiciary on the homeland terrorism and homeland security and terrorism and crime in America. And look, the bottom line is we have a lot of flawed policies in this country that are subjecting our officers who are on the front line, who have no choice but to go to work. That's their job. And if you think about it, anybody that would agree to go to work under these type of circumstances in this day and time, you have to take your hats off to these guys, and you got to do everything you can to protect them. So
right. It is extraordinary the people out there that are still on the street doing the job because, not only are they worried about, oh gosh, am I going to get in trouble for, maybe a policy violation? Or am I going to have a lawsuit? Now it's, am I going to go to prison? Am I going to be indicted? Is my family going to be doxxed and endangered? It's so much worse. And just in the last 7 or 8 years, it's gotten so much worse than it ever was before, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. You've seen these increased attacks. I think I was just looking at one of the statistics the other day, and I saw like a 63% increase in ambush style attacks on police officers. Right.
Yep.
People are emboldened to attack our officers because they don't feel that there are going to be any consequences. And in fact, every city across this country has essentially shown that there are no consequences for attacks on our police. So I think as an advocate, I think we really have to start talking about how we can develop somewhat of a federal Bill of Rights for our law enforcement officers, right? Where we give these officers, if you think of hate crimes and how hate crimes are prosecuted, right? If you attack someone because of their race, color, sex, or creed, you can be federally indicted. Well, you know what? There's also a stipulation in that same, I think of USC 2339 that talks about um, hate crimes, and it talks about individuals that are separated by identifying mark or something, right?
Right.
These officers are being attacked specifically because they wear a uniform, which is, I think, there's a great argument for protecting our police using similar hate crimes, saying that because they're being attacked simply because of the uniform they wear. It doesn't matter what color they are, it's simply because of the uniform that they're in. And I think we have an argument. We just need to continue to get law enforcement behind and push the narrative.
You are so right, Sarge. Listen, we are almost out of time. Where can people find you, follow you, and see what is happening with you in the future?
Yeah, you guys can learn more about me on, go to nationalfof.org. Right now, I don't have the political campaign going. I had a lot of people reaching out to me about running for office. And I think right now, America needs me fighting for the interests of the people on the ground. And that's where I'm going to be. This is where everything's at right here. It's on the front line. And like I said, go to nationalfof.org, learn more about us, learn about what we do, and get involved. Every social group, law enforcement support group in this country that's protecting the interests of our country, we need to connect with them, guys. I want to encourage you to do that.
Absolutely. Doctor, thanks so much for spending time with us today. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Last year, law enforcement officers were involved in hundreds of thousands of use of force incidents. A use of force incident is when an officer must use nonverbal tactics to gain control of a dangerous situation.
Put the knife on the ground.
In many cases, officers have no choice but to use force when a suspect doesn't comply with a lawful order.
Use of force is always ugly. No one likes it, especially police officers.
Together, we can help de-escalate these dangerous encounters. Help police officers by complying with their lawful orders. Don't attack, attempt to disarm, or flee from an officer.
Use of force is an officer's last option. Most incidents can be avoided by not resisting arrest.
If you feel you've been wrongfully detained by a police officer, then seek a legal solution after the encounter has been resolved.
Let's keep everyone safe. Comply now and complain later.